folks. I want to talk about something that everybody seems to, be chatting about on social media, YouTube, Facebook, X, which is the fact that George is supposedly coming back to have some sort of influence or some sort of, in some capacity, being involved in the Star Wars shows or whatever's going on at Lucasfilm. There's a census that he is coming back in some capacity. And everybody thinks that this is going to fix Star Wars. And it's going to basically make things better in Lucasfilm. That he will be able to bring Star Wars back to where it's supposed to be. And as much as I would love for that to be the case, it's just not practical or likely or really possible. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, I'm not saying this from the standpoint of I'm trying to get a lot of views or a lot of likes, and so I'm talking about something that's controversial. No, I'm simply saying what the reality is, and it's not that I'm trying to. Any of you who are hoping that Star Wars can get away from where it's at now, the wokeism and the terrible storytelling and the damage that the sequels cause and all that other stuff. I'm not here to try to make you think that, to try to depress you. But the reality is that Disney is owned. First of all, Disney owns Lucasfilm. We know that. I mean, it's not, that's just common knowledge. We understand that, okay? It's owned by a corporation. Now, before Lucasfilm was owned by Disney, Lucasfilm itself was the corporation, okay? It was the company. And George was the president of that company. And so, back then, in those days, what George wanted happened. And there may have been people that didn't like certain things, but they weren't the ones telling the story. It was just their opinion, okay? Ultimately, George is the one that wrote the stories, and they're the stories that he wanted to tell. 1 through 6 are completely his, and I love 1 through 6, okay? But now, Star Wars is not owned by the founder and the creator. It's owned by a corporation outside of itself, a separate entity. And this separate entity, called Disney, okay, people think that they're the big boss. No. Disney is owned by the World Economic Forum. They are owned by the elites, such as Klaus Schwab, and these people that want to basically incorporate all of this Marxist woke identity politics into everything, into stores, into products, into merchandise, everything, because they want to bring about their new world order, essentially. And that's not a conspiracy. Klaus Schwab says you'll own nothing and be happy. They want to turn things to their liking, to what they want to see happen in the world, okay? Disney, like most companies, get a paycheck for their ESG scores. Those of you who don't know what that means, it's basically a score that you get checked on, and if your ESG score is good, meaning if you incorporate this inclusion, equity, diversity, wokeness, LGBTQ stuff, if you incorporate enough of that into your product or into your films, these elites will give you or give your company a check, a handsome, heavy, fat check. And so when we saw companies like Anheuser-Busch with a whole Bud Light thing, where they had Dylan Mulvaney, the transgender, male, okay, onto the cans of their Bud Light beers, okay? And there was the uproar and the backlash. Now, I'm not typically a beer person, okay? I wasn't really I guess you would say, invested in Bud Light to be that upset about it. But at the same time, I understood why it was happening, and I was glad that it was being boycotted. I was glad that it was, that people were saying, we don't want this in our product. I was fine with that. That was good to see. However, Miller Lite turns around and they do the exact same thing, probably with not even a week or two when Bud Light does it. And they saw the uproar that happened with Bud Light, but Miller Lite still chose to do it. Okay. What does that mean? You see, if people boycott Star Wars, okay, just like with Anheuser-Busch did that so their ESG scores would go up, which means that they get a paycheck, a fat paycheck either way. They are essentially secure in the system. This is not conspiracy. You can look all of this up. Nobody wants to talk about this. Everybody wants to say, well, if we just fight back, you can't fight back against this. Okay? Because ultimately, it doesn't matter if you boycott Bud Light. It doesn't matter if you boycott Miller Lite. It doesn't matter. Because as long as their scores are high and everything's being checked off like how their real bosses want it to be, then they're going to get paid either way. And that's just the reality. Okay? Disney, all they are concerned about is their ESG scores. That's it. Okay? And that's why you see every show. I own Star Wars, the video game Star Wars Squadrons for the PS4. Okay? And basically, I was enjoying the game. I was pretty much, almost all the way through it. I mean, I didn't, I hadn't watched any walkthroughs or gameplays of it. So, but I was, the amount of hours I put into it, I was assuming that the game was almost at the point of being done, right? Well, one of the characters, one of the Imperial pilots, when you can talk to the certain characters in the game, he mentioned that him and his husband were Joy the Empire, and it's like, wait, hang on a second. I just spent the last, I've spent so many hours on this, the weeks on this game, invested in this game. And then all of a sudden, one of the main characters turns out to be gay. And it's like, and it instantly takes you out of the video game. Because you understand why it's there, the ESG scores. And see, back in the day, these were not things in George Lucas's Star Wars. These type of things didn't exist in his Star Wars. They didn't. And you were able to get immersed because of the story being told. But now what's happening, again, is you can definitely see the agenda, the push for it. And it does not matter how much we boycott Disney. It doesn't matter how much we try to fight against Disney. I'm not saying don't do it. I am saying push back against them. I'm not going to renew my Disney Plus subscription. It ran out. I'm not going to renew it. Okay? I'm not even going to entertain them. But, so I'm not saying don't do those things, but you got to understand something, that even if George Lucas comes back, he's coming back to Lucasfilm that has a new master. And the new master is not just, Disney is like Darth Vader. The elites, the World Economic Forum, they are like the Emperor. Okay? They are really the ones calling the shots. So if George does come back, he's not going to be able to have, even if he wanted to, even if that was on his mind, to really change some things, to try to bring it back to his original plans or whatever. Even if that was on his mind, he would not be able to, because they wouldn't, if he did that, they would not, Lucasfilm would not be tallying up those ESG scores, okay? And so they would lose money, okay, because fans would, they've lost money already, But if George were to come back and actually make Star Wars great again, Disney would not like that. They don't want that. So everybody thinks that he's going to save it. But guys, I hate to tell you this, and it's not to depress you, but it's just the reality. He is not going to fix Star Wars. He's not going to fix it. I even, sadly, just with his political views, how they are already, you never really saw that in episodes 1 through 6. You saw good storytelling in 1 through 6. Meaningful storytelling in episodes 1 through 6. And he kept mainly a lot of his own politics out of it. And he just told a good story, an overall overarching story about good and evil. And it was enjoyable, and we could all kind of rally behind that, right? But with his politics, and with him not being in charge of Star Wars anymore, and with, all the things going on in the world at Lucasfilm, at Disney, he's not going to be coming back. He can't fix it. Okay? He can't. He won't get paid. They won't get paid. My guess is that he's going to come back and probably help Dave Filoni with the Heir of the Empire movie and with some certain things, But other than that, there's not going to be any real change. The woke stuff will still be there. And don't be surprised if he actually supports the woke stuff blatantly. Don't be surprised. Okay? Now, I love Star Wars. I love episodes 1 through 6. I love the Clone Wars. But other than that, those were things that he made before all this stuff happened. And yes, he still had the same politics, but he kept a lot of that out. He kept pretty much all of that out of it. And he just told a timeless story, which was good. Today, and as far as where he's at today and the position that he has, it's not the same anymore, guys. And so, people think that he's going to come back and fix this stuff. He's just not. It can't be fixed. Star Wars can't be fixed. Whether you boycott it, which, that's good if you do. But if you boycott it or not, it's not going to change the fact, because if people are wondering, well, how are they making the Acolyte? How are they able to make something like the Acolyte and nobody really wants to see it, or a big majority of the fans don't want to see it because of the identity politics and all in the blatant, just feminist woke stuff in it, right? Like, it's taking away from what Star Wars is supposed to be. There's a lot of people upset about it, and you wonder, why are they making such a show? And why, Tales of the Empire, it was great up until the last few episodes. Then it was clear as day that it was woke, right? And so, even in the stuff that we have hope in, like for me, it was Tales of the Empire, it's turning out to be just more of the same thing, more of the same garbage over and over and over again. And that's because it doesn't matter how many views they have, how many views they don't have. That don't matter, because ultimately what matters is their social political stance and their ideology and all that stuff. That's the only thing that's important to them, because that's what gives them money. So if you wonder why would they still do this and lose viewers and lose money, it's because either way they're getting a paycheck. If they don't do this, then they won't get paid, and which means that if let me think about this, okay? And I'll leave it with this. If Bob Iger decided not to make things woke anymore in Star Wars, well, you're still, okay, let's just say you take all of that out and you say, we're not going to do that anymore, okay? Well, then the products coming, the films coming up, or the TV shows that you have upcoming, I guess, okay, if you have bad directors or bad screenwriters or a bad script, okay, and people look at it and say this is garbage because it's terrible, it's the story's not even good, and you lose money in that way. You got rid of the woke stuff, but then people don't like it, they don't go to see it. because the story is bad. Well, if you do that, you don't have your ESG score paycheck to lean on when things go bad. You see? You don't have your ESG score paycheck when your movie bombs just because of bad storytelling, bad writing. Okay? They bank on their ESG scores, and they actually make more money on that than they do. Like, over long term, they make more money with that than they do anything else. So, you know, really, in the Bible it says the love of money is the root of all evil. They sold their soul, okay, to the devil to get money. And now, once you do that, you're hooked. You're there. You can't leave, okay? And so that's what's happening, and it's not going to get any better, okay? And George is not even going to be able to put a Band-Aid on it, mainly because he probably doesn't want to. And even if he wanted to, it wouldn't matter, because he would have to face all of the Disney executives, Bob Iger, everybody. And to be honest with you, I mean, they would have control over him now, because he's not the president anymore. They would have complete control over what he does or says, and all that other. They can say, well, George, we just don't want you here anymore, and kick him out. Okay, that's the state of Star Wars, and that's just the reality. It's not gonna get better, and this is not about being a Debbie Downer or any of that other stuff. It's just raw facts. Okay, and that's why you see all these other corporations and companies doing the same thing, because they've sold their souls and they get a fat paycheck. Okay, and they love their money to the point to where they are willing to make corrupt products. They're willing to make garbage movies, trash TV shows. It doesn't matter to them. Okay, we live in a different era, a different time period right now, and things are not as they were 10 years ago at Lucasfilm, or even where I should say since 2012. Things have not been the same. Okay, things are different. The game is not played the same anymore. It's done. Okay, we've moved on. This is another, you know, a chapter in a book. You're not in the same chapter no more. This is where we're at. Okay, so I just wanted to say that, guys. I just see a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, George is coming back," and what is this? It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. You know, it's just all stuff that people want to hear, but the reality of it, how it's going to be played out, is not what people think. So, anyways, guys, I'll talk to you later.